Bar Wars is the 23rd episode of the 6th season of Cheers. This is directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And before I go any further, I will say I liked this significantly more than I did the first time. I have previously reviewed every season of Cheers individually. I did a video on season 1, on season 2, and I haven't listened back to that. But I imagine I would have said in that I'm not really a fan of the Bar Wars episodes. But actually, I rather enjoyed this one. So definitely a different experience to the first time I watched it, but ultimately a really great one. It starts off with Carla dressed rather nicely. She's going on a date with Eddie before he has to go off back to work. And Cliff suggests that he will cheat. He's a man on the road. And Carla's not listening to this, nor asks her what film they're going to see, and she says Fatal Attraction. Not a bad way to start things off. The rest of the episode is all about the bar war. And Rebecca comes in from a seminar wearing a gorgeous coat. I love that colour. And she's going to be more assertive. And then everybody's counting down. Everybody in the bar is looking at their watches and counting down. And then they ring the bell. And Rebecca says that they have to tell her what's going on or she'll cry, which is very Rebecca. And apparently 2 years ago, they won at bowling with Gary's Old Town Tavern. And there's this wonderful energy in the bar. Everybody's really excited and happy. And then they phone Gary. Great handling of the phone. The handset is being passed back and forth, and it's just delightfully done. And they taunt Gary. Well, Sam taunts Gary. And it seems like he's not taking the bait. He's not bothered. But then Carla realises the trophy is missing. The trophy they got from bowling. So Sam goes over with Woody. And Woody ends up smashing some cups as he tries to jump over the bar. And cut to the next scene. They come back in with the destroyed trophy. We get a brief mention of Diane with some conversation with Frasier, which I rather liked. And then Rebecca says that there is one thing you can beat Gary's Old Town Tavern at: maturity. And everybody in the bar starts to behave very immaturely. It reminded me a little bit of Thanksgiving Orphans, where everybody's showing off their special talents and they're all just doing really bizarre things. And this is exactly what's happening there. I don't know what Cliff was doing. He had some kind of spray, some bottle. I'm not entirely sure what he was doing, but it was really good fun and definitely worth watching that moment a couple of times just to observe everybody. We then cut to Gary's Old Town Tavern. And Carla and Sam have gone over to, and I quote, "let bygones be bygones." They hand out some alcohol, the patrons drink, there are holes in all of the glasses, and they leave with the parting sentiment that, "is that the best you can come up with?" We are then, of course, back in Cheers. Frasier and Lilith come in having their usual argument, conversation style of communication, and then pest control come in theory. And there are no rats there. Lilith gets excited very briefly because she wants to buy the rats if they find any. But obviously there are no rats there. Rebecca begins to panic because people in the bar are leaving as they start to hear about these rats. Norm, not that bothered about leaving. And they realise it's Gary's Old Town Tavern. And now Rebecca wants revenge. She had no need for revenge from the previous games or anything, because games is maybe not the right word, from the previous practical jokes and tricks, because she wasn't involved. But Gary has just sent over people to pretend to be pest control, to jeopardise Cheers, to jeopardise her customers, and obviously that's going to be really detrimental to the bar. And Rebecca's not having that. And I like that. I like the fact that she now has a reason to become involved. And somebody then comes in that we've never seen before, and everybody's very suspicious of this character. I think it was pretty obvious that this was just a random customer who has no connection to this bar feud. Gary comes in and he starts flirting with Rebecca, which Sam is not that happy about. And then Rebecca goes into her office and there are sheep everywhere. And of course she comes out of her office and states, "there are sheep in my office," which I absolutely love. The next thing we know, Carla is heading over to, we assume, Gary's Old Town Tavern with a VCR and a balaclava. Seems pretty suspicious. And then Gary's Old Town Tavern has the television on, and I can't imagine anybody would have predicted what was going to be on that screen. It's Cliff and Norm reading poetry. They're reading Rossetti. How happy Diane would have been that they're doing this. And of course, they're trying to watch sports and they can't. They have to watch Cliff and Norm or nothing. So I thought that was a pretty good way for them to get their own back on this occasion. Gary then comes over and Gary tells them that he's a personal friend of Wade Boggs, who was a Red Sox baseball player, and they obviously don't believe him. Why would they? And then Wade Boggs comes in, and they don't believe it's him. They assume it's somebody Gary has hired to pretend to be Wade Boggs. And it's important that Sam wasn't there, as I feel like Sam definitely would have recognised him. But I'm surprised Carla didn't. Carla is a big Red Sox fan, so that was a bit strange. They end up chasing this, well, Wade Boggs, but they don't know it's him, out of the bar. They come back in a little while later laughing, merry. They've pantsed him, they've got his trousers. They look through the possessions in his trousers, including his wallet, and realise, actually, this was Wade Boggs. And Frasier points out that Gary did the ultimate. He's got them getting themselves. And I think that makes perfect sense, because why else would Gary send over Wade Boggs to make them happy other than to make them doubt everything? And it was a pretty, well, I was going to say that's a pretty interesting way to end things, but we actually end with Al saying pretty weenie, which I liked. I liked Al's involvement in this. He was over at Gary's Old Town Tavern and now he's back at Cheers, and it's a really good episode. As I said, the first time I watched it, I didn't love it. And actually, it's made me really hopeful for rewatching the other Bar Wars episodes, which I'll say nothing else about until we get there. But I had a lot of fun with it. I liked that they had a reason to bring Rebecca into it so that she's part of things going forward. And ultimately, I can't fault it. Bar Wars is definitely a great episode of Cheers. Highlights would be the sheep, just Rebecca saying there are sheep in my office as if it's a perfectly normal thing for somebody to be saying in a sitcom. And also Al was just pretty brilliant. Definitely a much better experience this time around. Bar Wars was not too bad at all.